Hello and welcome back to Guided Souls. I'm your host Katie and I'm so excited to be back here for another week with you guys. If you prefer to watch instead of listen, you can head on over to my YouTube channel at Guided Soul Crystals, and you can also follow me on all the socials at Guided Soul Crystals. This week feels a little bit strange for me to be recording this podcast only because I'm very much still in the standing still phase that we talked about last week. So, in case you missed last week's episode, it was all about what to do when you're feeling lost. And the main thing is to stand still and to just allow the answers to find you and to unfold in front of you. So, I have definitely been doing that this past week and I am not done. So I was like, okay, I'm standing still. I'm not really doing, or I feel like I just don't have any wisdom beyond standing still to talk about. But what I can do this week is talk to you about my process while I'm standing still, which in turn is helping me to discover what my next step is. And I know that this process has worked because I've done it several times in the past year. And so I thought I'd share that with you guys in terms of, okay, you're standing still. What are you doing while you're standing still? Because realistically, you're doing something. And it's kind of this cycle of different phases that at least I go through in order to discover what my next step is. So, as a little bit of context, part of what I'm exploring right now is my path as a green witch and what that means to me and what that looks like in my work. And if you listened to my Earth Child episode a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, it's funny, I said in there, I definitely consider myself to be an earth witch or a green witch, but something just didn't feel inherent to my soul about that term. And then the moment, the day I turned 30, I feel like my ancestors, my spirit team were like, no, you're a green witch. Like maybe you were an earth child before, but you have now graduated to be a green witch. And so I've been doing a little bit more research on being a green witch, reading up on it a bit, and I'm so much a green witch that it's like a little bit laughable at this point. It just fits who I am to a T, that it's a little funny that I was trying to resist it and maybe still am in some ways. So I'm kind of exploring that behind the scenes and seeing, okay, is this something that is meant to just be for me, or am I meant to speak about it kind of more on a public level in a way that impacts the work that I do in the world? So I'm not sure what the answer to that is yet, but I thought I would work with my Green Witch Oracle deck for today's episode as sort of a guideline and a metaphor for the different phases that you go through as you are experiencing your next steps. So this may be the last time you ever hear me talk about being a Green Witch, or I might do a whole episode on it, or it might end up being a much larger part of my path than I realize right now. None of that is up to me, and it really doesn't matter. And that's kind of in theme with this episode as well. So if you are listening, I will describe the cards to you. If you are watching, I will show the cards to you, but they will give us the outline of what we are going to be talking about today. So the different phases that I will be walking through in terms of discovering what your next step is as seeds. We've got the seeds card here, which is new ideas, hope, and open-mindedness, followed by sow. And the sow card says planning, setting intentions, and optimism. Then we have tend, which says maintenance, encouragement, and guidance, and also harvest, which is determination and hard work. And if you're curious of what this deck is or looks like, and I have no stake in the game, I am not like affiliated with this at all, but it's called the Green Witch Oracle deck, and I found it on Amazon. It's by Erin Murphy Hiscock, and I'm also reading her book on the Green Witch as well, just in case you are interested in that. So, along with those four phases, at the end of each phase, we are going to ask ourselves, okay, is this an idea or an avenue or a path that I think could lead to fruit, meaning achievement and success? Or do I need to use the sickle, which will allow me to let go and focus on regrowth? I will also talk about some of the different emotions that come with using the sickle and quote unquote starting over, because part of this process is doing that a lot. And it definitely takes a toll on your emotions. I am not immune to that. I experience them. So we'll talk about that. And then I will just leave you with some tips that I have found to be helpful for me and that I have learned the hard way. And I just want to say, kind of as an overarching thing, one thing that really has helped me to discover just my way of being in the world is human design. And I know I've talked about that. And I know we had Reiki Marco on to talk about that. So listen to that episode in case you missed it. But if you don't know what your human design strategy is, I would highly recommend looking it up. Mine is wait to respond. And so I can initiate something, but then I have to wait to respond to what the universe is giving me. And that is the method or the strategy for, I think, about 60% of the population, because it's for generators and manifesting generators. So there's a likelihood that that is also your strategy, but manifestors, projectors, and oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the last one. So sorry. Reflectors have different strategies. So make sure to look that up if you are wanting to tailor this to your specific strategy even more, which I highly, highly recommend doing. Looking at your not self theme also helps you to know when you need to pivot. Mine is frustration. So if I'm feeling frustrated, it means that I definitely need to pivot. But we will start with seeds. So a seed in this instance is that light bulb moment. It's that idea that is quite literally planted in your mind, either seemingly from thin air, or maybe someone says something that sticks with you, or you see something that kind of sparks this creativity inside of you. And it's this moment of, oh, I could do that. That sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I'm being shown this for a reason. Maybe this is the way that I meant to go. And I'll also mention not every seed will be harvested. That is why at the end of each of these phases, we are going to ask ourselves, okay, is this likely to bear fruit, or should I use the sickle? And so you have to be willing to explore each of these phases with that in mind. And also know that each phase that something goes into, the harder it gets to ask yourself that question, because once you've put in a lot of work towards something, you don't want to start over, but it's not up to you. So just keep that in mind. But with the seeds, you are allowing your imagination to run wild and envision yourself doing this thing or in this life. In my opinion, the seeds is not necessarily the time to get super diligent and analytical of, okay, how would I make this work? That comes in the next phase. The seeds is just like, how does this feel in my body? How does this feel in my mind? Does this excite me? Does this sound like something that is authentic to who I am? Does this scare me? But maybe that means I should go towards it. It's really kind of about like letting the idea sit with you and almost like germinate, I guess, in your brain, and just see how it feels to you without actually taking action on it or over intellectualizing it. You will know if and when the time is right to take action. So if you don't know, I would err on the side of not taking action on it. But even if you decide to, you may just find out quickly that, okay, that's not actually the avenue that I was meant to go down. But giving yourself a little bit more time can save you from some of the effort if it's not necessarily meant to go on to that next phase. Not every single idea that we get is meant to be picked up. Not every single nudge that we get from the universe is meant to be pursued. So, take your time to really feel that out. I tend my germination period, for lack of a better word, with seeds tends to be about 1 to 2 days, sometimes longer, sometimes it's more like a week, but it's very rarely less than 24 hours. I feel like I almost always need a night to sleep on it and see how I feel in the next day. And I would say probably over half the time my seeds are just that. It's like an idea that's like here and then it's gone, and that's okay. You can write down these ideas if you're afraid of losing the idea, but you don't want to act on it. Feel free to journal on it. That's always super helpful. But again, try not to act on it and try not to over intellectualize it. The seeds part is one where I feel like, okay, you're asking yourself, is this something that eventually could lead to achievement and success? Or is this something that I kind of need to use the sickle and focus on letting go and regrowth? When you're in the seeds, I think you truly can just go based off of your intuition. If you are feeling pulled and called to continue to pursue something, then take it to the next phase, which is sow. And if at the end of that germination period, you want to say, actually, you know what? That doesn't sound that good to me because of XYZ, or I'd be repeating this pattern, or, fill in the blank. I think with seeds in particular, going off of your intuition is a really great way to just know, hey, do I want to take this to the next phase or do I want to let it go? And there is absolutely nothing wrong with letting something go. The other cool part about using a sickle to let things go, and so in case anyone doesn't know what a sickle is, I guess I should have said that. It's like this staff that has almost like a crescent moon shape on top of it, and it's something that you would see like the Grim Reaper hold, which I know is kind of dark, but it's used in gardening to remove dead leaves or plants in order to make way for something new. So it is to remove things that are, sort of dead but no longer serving their purpose. But it's definitely not a negative thing. If anything, it helps make space for the things that are really meant to grow. Oh, but what I was going to say is, if you are worried, oh, what if I cut this off too soon and my intuition is wrong and I'm actually meant to go towards it? Don't worry. If it is meant for you, you cannot miss it. It will keep showing up in your life and you will keep trying it until it clicks and it makes sense and it works. So go with your intuition, go with your gut, and try not to overthink whether or not this is the right decision, because if it is meant for you, it will always come back around for you. But if you decide, hey, I like this seed, I like this idea, I want to take this to the next phase, then we are going into the sow phase. And in the sow phase, we are planning, setting intentions, having optimism, and this is where you are doing your research. You are crunching the numbers. You are seeing if this is realistically something you could attain, something that you want to attain. You are maybe looking up some books, listening to podcasts, reading blogs, looking up people on social media. You are making a plan of how you could potentially achieve said goal or step into said lifestyle. I do think it's important, at least from my experience, to try not to make any financial investments just yet. I like to make a wish list of things that I would get if I was going to pursue this, but I try not to pull the trigger on getting things, even if it's a small thing. So, if you want to get yourself like a $10 book or whatever, just to learn more about it, because that's going to help you, amazing. But, you could also go to your library and they may have a book on it for free. Or if you just waited like another day or two and sat with it, you could see, okay, this is actually something that I want to financially invest in. Because if you are financially investing in every little idea that you have, even if it's only $10, well, if you have 10 ideas in a month, that's $100. Maybe even have that in a week. So, if you're not money conscious, I guess that's fine. But for me personally, I try not to put any sort of financial investment into something until I am moving on to the next phase. So in the phase, I am literally just doing my research, just crunching the numbers. I'm going from dreamland, imagination of the seeds, and bringing it down into reality of, okay, how would I actually do this? Does this make sense? Are there other people out there that are doing this that I can look to? Does this actually fit with the type of life that I want? Does this feel authentic to me? You're continuing to ask yourself similar questions from the seeds phase, but you're doing so in a way that's a little bit more grounded and realistic and set in real life. And at the end of this, you're asking yourself, okay, is this something that I think could bear fruit, or do I need the sickle for regrowth and letting go? And if like the numbers don't work out, if it seems wildly unrealistic to attain this goal, that's a pretty good sign to use the sickle. But again, if you are meant to dream that huge, big goal, it will always come find you. So don't worry about necessarily cutting it off at the knees. If it doesn't seem realistic, but your intuition is telling you to keep going, by all means do it. Nothing is going to beat that. But at the same time, I think it is important, especially if you are a dreamer like me, to kind of balance the feelings of excitement and wanting to dream big and reaching for the moon and landing among the stars with, okay, like realistically, how much is this going to cost you? Does this make sense with the current position that you're in? What type of time investment does this require? And naturally, different ideas will be weeded out just by going through that process. But others will make it through, and you'll see, oh, actually, I definitely could do this, and I could envision myself doing that. And, the time and the financial investments all line up with what I'm looking for, and it feels authentic to me. And I do think that this could bear fruit. And if that is the case, then you are moving on to the tend phase. So in the tend phase, you are looking for maintenance, encouragement, guidance. This is where you are putting your plan into motion. I would encourage you to start small, because remember, at any point during this process, you could be called to take out that sickle and restart and let go of whatever you're working on. So if you're like me, you want to dive all in head first, but try to curb your enthusiasm just a little bit as you start to put your plan in motion slowly. So maybe you go to that wish list of things that you were looking at, and there is a book that would really help you to determine whether or not you want to move forward with this, and you get that book. Maybe you do a few small things every day to incorporate that new lifestyle or that thing that would get you closer to that goal or to that lifestyle. Maybe you start to talk it through with 1 to 2 people who you really trust. I would just be careful of how you phrase it and who you say it to. I like to be very clear when I'm having conversations, mainly with my husband, because I do find it very helpful to talk through things with him. But I'll be clear of like, hey, I'm looking for feedback on this and what you think, versus, hey, I just want to talk this through. I'm not really looking for your opinion, which maybe someone would be offended by that. My husband's not. We have a very open relationship, so he could say the same thing to me, and it would be like, yeah, of course, like, let's just talk it through. And they can just ask you questions without actually giving their opinion on anything. So just make sure that you phrase it how you are wanting them to respond. And also, I would keep it small and make sure that it's someone whose opinion you value. but not in a way where you are seeking their approval, in a way where you are like, I genuinely trust that this person has my best interest at heart. And so I'm going to open up to them about this. But maybe you choose to keep it totally to yourself. That's also okay too. I've done that plenty of times, especially with my ideas that are a little bit more outlandish. I'm kind of like, I just want to try this and make sure that it is something that I really want to do or that really fits before I tell anyone about it. And I think that's also perfectly acceptable. So just, follow your intuition there. I would definitely seek guidance from your spirit team. Make sure that you're checking in with them often, thanking them for the guidance that they are providing you, asking them to help you to see the path in front of you, but also to surrender to whatever the path is and continuing to be willing to use that sickle if and when you need to. And once you start to put your plan into motion, I would look for external signs that things are working or they aren't. And this may be controversial, but I think in the very beginning stages of something, there should at least be a little period that feels easy or that is in some sort of flow state or where you are getting some sort of positive reaction from the universe. I don't mean a positive reaction from your family or your friends or social media or whatever. I mean, like, you are seeing external signs from the universe that is telling you you are going in the right direction. And if that doesn't resonate with you, if you don't want to look for external signs, that's okay. But for me, I think this goes back to my human design of waiting to respond. So I do actually need a cue from the universe before I respond to something. But I think I've also just been in a situation where I've hit stop sign after stop sign, brick wall after brick wall. And I have been like, I will move this brick wall. And the universe has been like, no, you won't, because I'm not meant to go in that direction. It's like, if something is not meant to work out for you, it won't. And for me, I have found that I save myself a lot of trouble if I see, okay, this is really hard. This is pushing a really heavy ball uphill for a long time. I'm not getting any reprieve. I'm not finding joy from this. It's just not working and it's stressing me out. That is when I say, hey, maybe it's time to put a pause on this and reevaluate whether or not this is a path or method that I want to move forward with. And of course, that is part of asking yourself at the end of this phase, do I still see, now that I have actually put my plan into motion, I am taking action, even if it's small, do I still see this leading to fruit? Which, in addition to achievement and success, I want to be clear, is also like emotional fulfillment, feeling aligned, living a life that is authentic to you. Those are an equal, like, definition of achievement and success in my mind. Or is this not aligned? Is this not actually what I want? Is this not working? And do I need to use that sickle for letting go and making space for regrowth? But if you decide that you do see this being something that could bear fruit, then you are moving on to the last phase, which is harvest. And this card says determination and hard work. And it's interesting. I think I historically have thought of harvest as like, this is where all your hard work pays off. You are getting the fruits of your labor, so to speak. But harvesting is actually hard work. You are all in, you are going for it. You are, at a bare minimum, making a commitment to give it your all and see where it goes. It does not mean that you are saying, I will never give up on this. This is absolutely my path. It is you saying, I feel very passionate about this. I have gone through all the phases and feel like I want to be all in on this thing. And I am going to give it my all and see where it takes me. And if where it takes me is hey, actually, this isn't the path. We need you to use the sickle to let go and find regrowth. That is okay. But in the meantime, I'm going to give it my all. It is important to continuously check in with yourself and your spirit team. And I will be so transparent. This is 100% the hardest phase to say to yourself, I need to let this go, because you have invested at this point time, energy, maybe finances, whatever it may be. But just because you have invested all of those things, just because you have announced this to all of your family and friends and to the world at large, doesn't mean that it's meant to work. So it's like being willing to commit and go all in while also realizing that at any point in time, you might be called back to the starting point, and you have to be willing to let that go, which is so hard. I've been there several times, and I think the most classic example is how all in I was on this nonprofit that I created in honor of my dad, which I still feel passionate about, and I still believe it is just an energetic no at this specific time in my life. I don't think it's forever, but I went all in on that. I told everybody, I announced it, I did all this stuff. I got all these certifications just to find out that, hey, actually, what I'm meant to be doing, at least for now, is creating content about spirituality and talking about, being a medium and past loved ones on TikTok, which is just so freaking different than what I would have thought at the beginning of that. But again, like, it's not up to us where we end up. And I do want to talk about some of the emotions that come with the sickle, with starting over, with, opening space for that regrowth that really is at the heart of standing still. It is really hard. A lot of times starting over does feel like you just wasted your time. Why was I taken on that detour if that wasn't what I was meant to do? I don't understand. And that to me is this feeling of fog with this Green Witch Oracle deck. There's a card that says fog, obscurity, feeling lost. And what I try to come back to is there was something that I learned along that detour, or that my brain opened up to, that wasn't there before and that I needed to do in order to get to where I'm going. And it's hard because we don't know where we're going, so we can't see why we were taken on that detour. But I know that if when I had my 9 to 5 that I was miserable at, if someone told me your end destination with leaving this job is giving past loved one readings on TikTok, I would have never, ever left my job. Like, that would have been insane. But the universe needed me to take all these detour paths to slowly open myself up to the idea of that and the possibility of that. So I know it's hard to see why we are taking on these detours, why we have to start over. I am someone who has had to start over so many times in the past year. I'm still currently starting over, so I get it. However, it is all a part of your path, and you did learn something along the way, or your mind became open to something that is an integral part of where you are going. After I kind of get over the obscurity or feeling lost, I tend to go into this feeling of rain with this card. It says cleansing, purification, hydration. This is a lot of times what I will think of as a grieving period. I'm honoring what I just worked so hard on. I'm proud of myself for giving it a go, for being brave, for being courageous. And I'm also grieving the loss of this idea that I had. And sometimes this grieving period is very short. Sometimes it takes me a while. depending on how much time and energy and sometimes finances I have put into a certain idea. But it's really about honoring, cleansing, and then saying, okay, I'm ready to move on. And that takes you to this snow card, which is about rest and contemplation. And that is where we are still, we are quiet, and we are making space for that new seed to come in. And then we are starting it all over again. And there's really nothing more exciting to me than a new seed that comes in. And the only way that those come in is after you've used the sickle, you've gone through the fog and the rain, and you're sitting in the snow. So, those are the different phases that I go through when I am in that process of being put on pause or standing still, and I'm trying to figure out my next steps. But there are a few really big tips that I have mentioned throughout here, but I just want to really hone in on them because these are all mistakes I have made over and over again. And so if I can save you some of the headache of doing these things, I would love to do that for you. None of the above things will work, or I guess they may work, but it will be much more painful and longer and drawn out if you do not detach from the outcome. Like I said, you don't actually know what outcome is best for you. Your beautiful human egoic brain does not know what is best for you, what the best outcome is. It can't see it. Your higher self knows, your spirit team knows, the universe knows. On a soul level, your soul knows. But you, with your beautiful human mind, does not know. And so whenever you have a seed, whenever you are going into the sow and the tend and the harvest, the most important thing is to detach from the outcome. You want to detach from the outcome, because when you do that, the outcome that you are focused on is just following the path that the universe has laid in front of you, knowing that it is for your greater good and for the greater good of the world, then it doesn't actually matter to you what that looks like, because you just have faith that you are going to be in the place that is the best for you. And so if something doesn't work out, you just know that there is something else that is better for you. It's going to be this, or it's going to be something better. Those are the only two options. And I know that that is one of the hardest, things to do. I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but I have tried to say, please help me on this path of exploring this avenue, but also to be open to just surrendering to whatever path is for my highest good, even if that means letting this thing go. If you say that every day, regardless of what thing or seed it is that you are focused on, you will realize that it is possible to detach from the outcome, and it is possible to move through those feelings of loss and grief so much faster when you are not attached to any specific outcome outside of the fact that you are just doing this because you are on your path to your highest timeline, living a life that's most authentic to you on your destined path. That's all that matters. I also would try not to commit to things far in the future regarding this idea, particularly when it involves other people or telling other people. So much of this is being willing to fail quickly. And if you have said, I'm going to be doing this every Tuesday, for the next 6 months or whatever, or come check this thing out 3 months from now, well, next week you might not want to do that. And so I think just trying not to commit to things with this specific path, trying not to bring too many other people into it. It's okay to fly solo. It's okay to kind of keep things quiet at the beginning. It kind of moves into keep your circle small. I would not announce anything until you are sure. You don't even have to announce something at all. You can just start doing something and see how it feels, and then Like people will just start to know because you will be doing it and you will kind of be telling people one off or putting it out there in the world. I think this is definitely a mistake that I have made and that I continue to make. I'm just like, hey, world, here's this huge, big announcement. It's like, yeah, I could do that, or I could just like do the thing and then slowly roll it out to other people as it makes sense. So I love a big announcement as much as the next person, but try and keep it small at first. Again, try not to invest a lot financially at first. If anything, I wouldn't invest at all for those first couple phases if you can. And then lastly, just have patience, give yourself grace, allow yourself time to grieve, and be ready to start over. This is probably one of the most difficult but also exciting phases to be in. It can be so frustrating and we just want to get to the other side of it. But there's also something really beautiful about just being in this place of complete creation and surrendering to whatever the universe has in store for you. And it's also a beautiful time to allow yourself to slow down and to focus on things that you wouldn't normally have time to focus on because you are being put on pause. So, that is my process that I go through, some of my tips, and this is currently what I am doing to help me to discover what my next step is. And, hopefully that can be helpful to you as well. Or again, if you want to look up your human design and you want to shift some of this to fit more in line with your strategy, you can absolutely do that. If you happen to be a manifesting generator or generator, your strategy is to wait to respond. So if you're a manifesting generator, you can start it a little bit more than a generator, but then you have to wait to respond. So I will sing the praises of human design until the cows come home or until for some reason it doesn't make sense anymore. So look up your human design and that can help tailor this a little bit more to you as well. That is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to me. It means the absolute world to me. If you haven't already, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you are in need of any crystals, you can go to guidedsoulscrystals.com. Also find me on all the social media at Guided Soul Crystals. And until next time, keep going. You are doing amazing, and I love you.